Good evening, everybody. It's Monday, June 14th, 2021. My name is Mike Langford, and welcome back to another episode of DearBands Live, the podcast that explores the paths and stories of career-minded artists and music industry professionals. My guest tonight has been dubbed a one-man prog band thanks to their solid musical foundation as a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist, along with the help of a looper pedal. He's also a member of the acoustic ambient EDM-infused metal duo Mobius Radio. His YouTube channel has millions of views, thanks in part to his classical guitar cover of the internet meme Coffin Dance. He's about as well-rounded as a musician can get, loves the art of live performance, be it on the big stage alongside household names, or for an actual household in their own backyard. Please welcome my guest tonight, guitarist, singer-songwriter, and content creator, Dylan Hennessy.
Thank you for having me on, Mike. Pleasure to be here. Quite
Thank
the
you
intro.
for joining us. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things I wanted
there.
to fit into that intro because you
Sorry,
do
I want
a
you to
lot
read
of
back
things.
to me one more time. Acoustic, ambience, EDM, metal infused duo? Was
Metal
that right?
duo, yes.
Holy. Doesn't that just roll off the tongue?
I know. I had to practice that one.
Yeah.
I have to practice talking a lot, and that one I definitely had to. I had to put some time in on that one. But
Right.
thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So,
Happy to be here.
What have you been up to? What's new?
Man, like as of recently, it's kind of like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel with live gigging again, and that's where my focus has been recently. And that's been like, I'm so happy to finally say that, you know.
That's been with so many people.
Yeah.
Just excited to get playing again.
Yeah, man.
Speaking of, you played at a skate park recently.
Yep. So that was a lot of fun.
You just rolled in and set up.
So that skate park is right near where I live. Yeah, basically. So that skate park's right near where I live. I go skate there all the time. And some of the guys there like, no, oh yeah, I know Dylan like plays music and stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just come here and set up one day and play. And that day I'd sort of made the announcement on social media about my backyard busker initiative and like going out and just playing shows wherever. So I thought that'd be a fun place just to go that night. And so it was actually a little overcrowded. Like I wouldn't have been able to skate anyway, because it was just kind of like, you know. So it was a good thing that I was off on the side away from people. But yeah, like it ended up being such a cool gig, and everyone there was like vibing with it, and parents and their kids like dancing in the park and stuff, and everyone just out sort of like from day one past the lockdown. And oh man, it was an infectious vibe there. It was really cool. Yeah. So I'm definitely gonna go do that again.
As far as that, the backyard initiative idea, like was that something you've been thinking about for a bit, or did it just kind of like pop into your head? You're like, let's just go and try that.
Well, I mean, I've been busking for a long time, right? And I have all the gear together for it. So I was like, it came up, I guess. I had released a single for Mobius Radio. It was a Dr. Draw collaboration called the Jake Revival. And as part of the promotion for it, I had said for everyone that goes and like pre-saves the song or shares the YouTube link, you get entered into a draw where you can win a free backyard concert. And so that's where that stemmed from. It's like I had that list of people who had entered, and I'm like, why don't I just see if I could go do shows for all these people? Why not? You know? And so we did that first initial run where it was like, I played for the winter in a park, and I was like, yeah, I need to get out and start doing this again. Not only just, I mean, a lot of it's for me and just like getting my own chops back again. Right. So everyone, including the musicians, are needing live music, you know? So start at ground zero and just sort of meet people wherever you can. So just get into people's backyards, I thought would be a good place to start getting back into it. And so far it's been, yeah.
You plan on live streaming those as well?
Yeah, when I can get access to like Wi-Fi, I'll definitely. I was thinking of that the other day and being like, oh man, I should have streamed that one. I did a gig out in Caledon a couple days ago. And yeah, like just going and doing the backyard thing was like super cool. Really enjoyed it.
No, it sounds fun, and again, like I know you as a musician, you performed a lot, and you mentioned the busking, you mentioned the like more traditional shows with venues and stuff, like just between the two, but like it's been over a year for a lot of us since playing, and sometimes you just got to figure out a way to make it work. So when I saw you, when I saw the skate park thing, I saw the backyard thing, I was just like, okay, that's a good kind of bridge between like the hard stop that we kind of had over a year ago, and just kind of getting back out and getting in front of people.
Yeah, exactly. And just we're lucky that it's the middle of summer right now. Or sorry, it's not even the middle of summer. It's beginning.
Well,
of summer.
Canadian summer.
A long time
you never
ahead
know
of
it's
us,
over.
Yeah, wow, that was quick, man. Jeez. The timing of this is good, I think. So, just being able to get out and go do that with the weather outside sort of permits it to be safe. So,
nope, you gotta take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to do.
I wanted to say, I do want to get into your kind of origin of how you got into music in a minute, but you put out a lot of content over the last year as well. We had a chat probably close to a year ago about things and just what was going on, and you've had a lot of videos you've put up. You had, there's the success of your coffin dance cover, because like that did pretty well. I remember you were kind of one of the first ones in my circle online that started doing stuff on TikTok.
Yeah, someone kind of got me into that a little bit earlier before it became the oversaturated beast that it is today.
But still, it's just like you've just found all these different avenues you could explore and go down, and also like your skill set, like you're a musician, singer-songwriter, but also like I do think playing drums is a huge benefit for like musicians that are recording themselves and mixing them. Like there's just all these things on production side as well that you can kind of handle, and then also the video aspect of it too. It's like, did you already have a lot of the skills for the recording and for the video, or did you acquire those last year?
So COVID was certainly a time to work on it. A lot of that stuff I did have prior, and I mean, it kind of dates back to just like being in school, really. And I went to school for independent music production at Seneca. So that was like first place I really got my hands in on some self-production. But I mean, that whole time I've been chopping my own demos, and even like there's a few Spotify singles that I did all the mix and the master on. So just, I guess it was built up over a long time, I mean, live is certainly like the primary chops in my mind for myself, but it was a good challenge to see if I can just keep the content train rolling. And I mean, it's funny because like I think a lot of people felt this, where you're making all this content and it feels like you're throwing it at a brick wall, because like you can't go and reap the rewards of any of it. You can't go and use that to promote a live show, and like, I mean, you have to find other ways to do that, right? And find ways to keep yourself inspired also, and keep yourself engaged with people online. It's just a very different feeling. So I'm glad that it kept up long enough to sort of see through to now where I can go out and play some music again for some people.
No, I hear you with some of the content, because I feel like as musicians, when we have a new release or a new EP or record, there's like a build up, and then there's like a release plan after it's done. And there's kind of this longer tail. But I feel like with a lot of online content, you make it, it's done, and then you instantly change focus onto the next one, and it just kind of does its thing, and whether it kind of reacts or not. But there's only so much cheerleading you can do behind some of these social media platforms, and realize like it really gets down to people sharing it, liking it, commenting it, like letting the algorithm, the beast of the algorithm kind of do its thing. Right.
And so I guess like part of my plan for over COVID, at least on the Mobius Radio side of things, which I'll explain quickly for anyone who's listening. I've been playing under my own name for a decade now, and then drummer Alex Van Brigel got involved in the looping stuff I do, and it moved over to that long genre title that you listed off the beginning, which was like not even a bad descriptor at all. But yeah, it's like this big multi-genre looping thing that we've made that I no longer thought made sense under just the name of Dylan Hennessy. I kept getting footed at the bottom of bills because everyone thought that I was just a acoustic folk guy, which at one point I was. So we launched Mobius Radio, and then the day before our headlining debut show under that name at Bovine Sex Club, we got to cancel. So at the beginning of it kind of left us in like band purgatory, right? And at the beginning of COVID, we had nothing on Spotify. and we had just launched out under a new name. We're like, oh crap, what do we do here? Because we were supposed to start off in a good run of shows and sort of get our momentum as a live act. But now we have like 5 out there. We have 5 singles up, and there's more that are sort of churning around in the back that are close to being finished that I can put out. And that's kind of what I wanted to do, was just slowly release out some different singles and some material that people could have as follow-up, so that when we come back and play live, people have a place to go and find us after. And I'm pretty happy with how that went, actually. It seems like, yeah, if I look at Spotify, I'm like, all right, we got some songs up here. It's good. We got some stuff done,
Just on, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. The thing about Spotify, again, just that global reach. Because there's some artists and some bands, they still just like they crap on Spotify, and it's like, payouts are what they are across any platform. Some are better, some are worse. But when it gets down to it, like getting music up there allows anyone in the world to easily get it and throw it on their playlist. It's like, that's where people are. Just like there's a lot of people at Netflix. There's a lot of people shopping on Amazon. It's like, get your stuff in front of where the eyeballs and ear holes actually are.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, like, on Spotify, your release strategy is certainly like, it's pretty rapid fire when it comes to these online releases, but they stay there and people still will go and see that in a back catalog. That's the main thing too, is the back catalog. The idea that like once you've moved, you could have 50 songs up there. If you get that one new core fan that loves Mobius Radio, they're going to listen through everything. Like, don't kid yourself that they're not going to listen through it. Yeah, it's just exactly like, listen, man, if you find a podcast you love and there's 3 episodes, you're kind of bummed, right?
Yeah, you just kind of rip through a little bit.
Even if they're just starting, it's what it is. It's got to take time to build the snowball up so that someone could find it and then go back and have like a wealth of material to enjoy. So
the other thing you mentioned, you've been working under your own name, and the idea of having a project with a project title on it.
Right.
Is that something? Are you experiencing or finding pros and cons to working under your own name, or even if you're solo artist, still putting a title on it versus working under your own name?
Well, it's hard to answer that question because I never really got to test it in the scenario it was intended for, right? But I guess I would still say yes, it's been mostly useful. There's a few things I probably would have done differently if I knew everything was coming up the way that it would. But, I wanted to give the Mobius Radio material its own identity, and it did. So it's like, if you go there, you can hear the music that me and Alex make and stuff that I had been performing from before that he got involved in. And now if I'm putting up my own name, that's probably going to be as a solo gig, and it's more representative of what to expect. So I think it's been mostly useful. Yeah. But it took me a while to come to that because, it always feels like a risky thing. I just sort of weighed out the pros and cons with it and was like, I don't know. I mean, I've been performing under my own name for a long time here, and I've done X, so on, so forth thing under my own name. And then I realized, like, I'm still Dylan, like it's just categorizing things, sorting it out better for listeners.
Yeah, no, I hear you with that. I'm always curious because, again, there's something to be said about when artists use their own name and they run with it versus having the title on it. But I do think there's a difference between your solo stuff and the Mobius Radio stuff.
And I thought it would be just easier to like book myself for the right kind of gig, because if everything is Dylan Hennessy and I'm trying to get a weekly residency at X bar where I'm playing acoustic covers in the corner, and they go to my YouTube page and they see The Mountain, which is like metal drum and bass, and they're going to be like, we don't want this here. This is not what we're looking for. So, it was a bit hard. I wish I didn't have so much of an interest in as many genres. It made my life a lot friggin' simpler.
The other thing, how did you come up with the name for Mobius Radio?
My dad came up with it. At least he introduced me to the word Mobius, and like I didn't know what a Mobius strip was, but I don't know if you do. I can explain it quickly. So a Mobius strip is a one-sided 3-dimensional object. Like if you took a ring and you cut it in half at one point and you turned it 180 and put it back together, you get a one-sided 3-dimensional object.
Oh, okay, because it can just keep following itself around.
Yeah, so we thought that it was like an apt descriptor of a twisted loop, and like we're doing twisted
Okay,
looping.
that's cool.
And the word radio is there. Just we thought that it would be representative of like many genres, and you kind of get this different spectrum of sound going on with it. And also for the live shows, I mean, not for everyone that'll still be talking in between, but Jeff Woods does narration. So like we have he's like read out a bunch of scripts as like intros to songs, and the whole thing takes place in like a faux radio station. So we thought that'd be just a fun way to present it live, which again we never really got to do, but
it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's
before
cool.
the end of the year, I know it's going to happen, which is like amazing.
It's a cool concept, cool idea, and again, it's something different. Yeah,
I just wanted to do something that people would sort of see and be like, "Whoa, what the hell is this?" You know, I've become more of a fan of polarizing an audience.
Yes,
like especially in the right venue. I'd rather have some people totally vibe with it, and some people be like, "I never want to hear that again." Then everyone be like, "Yeah, it's fine."
No, leaving people with an opinion is better than leaving them with no impression at all.
Yeah, that's right. So. Which again comes back to like, if I wanted to do something that was more generalized for more people, that I'm going to put that under my own banner. But like Mobius Radio is like this very niche sort of thing that we put a lot of heart into, and the songs are weird and quirky, and we like it that way. So
I'm looking forward to when you can get out and performing that live and
yeah, thanks. I think me and Alex are going to be able to jam for the first time in a very long time, very soon, which is like super exciting for me.
Oh, I hear you. It's been a while. Just thinking, when did you get into music? Like, what were you, guitar player first? Did you get piano? Like, how did you get started?
It was guitar. I got started. I think there's probably a similar story for a lot of people with like a guitar at Christmas when I was 10, and I picked it up on day one and instantly hated it. Actually, like I didn't play it for like a year.
Why'd you hate it?
It was just frustrating. I didn't hate it. It was just like, oh, it's too hard. I put it down. And then a year later I got bored. I can't remember what made me pick it up again. I just remember there was this point where like I got the guitar, I didn't like it, I didn't play it for a long time, and then like a year later I was playing guitar. I wish I could remember exactly what made me pick it up again, but suddenly it was just like it was in my hands and I was just like messing around with it. And, I think what it was when I got I remember now. When I got it, it was like I went into group lessons and we were learning like Ode to Joy, and like, I don't want to play Ode to Joy. Play like Back in Black or something like that. Right. And it took me a year to realize, oh yeah, I could just go on the internet and look up how to play this. At least we had like Ultimate Guitar. I wasn't quite on the cusp of like playing guitar when YouTube came into the scene, but at least you had like tablature you could just go look up for stuff. So I started messing around and just trying to use my ear and figure stuff out.
So you didn't even ask for a guitar?
No, I didn't.
No,
my dad was just like, he should have a guitar. I wanted to play guitar because my dad plays. So
I was going to say, your dad plays. Is it one of those things you think maybe let's get Dylan a guitar so maybe he's not grabbing at my guitars?
I don't know. There's a story he tells me that when I was like 4 years old, my dad was like, he learned how to play guitar knowing that he was like, oh, this would be really cool if I could play guitar for my kid or whatever, or play guitar with him. And I was like 4 years old when I figured out that if he was playing guitar, I could put my hand on the strings and it would stop the noise, and he was so crushed. It sounds brutal, but I'm just like, I mean, listen, it worked out in the end. I definitely turned it around.
It was a starting point.
But it was a rough start, yeah.
Yeah, it was a starting point. It's not all is equal in starting points for music. But I do think there's a lot to be said, and I've said it several times on the shows. It's like access to instruments for kids. And let them just figure it out, and their tools. And it's like, don't get a $2,500 acoustic guitar for your child. Like, get them something that's a bit of a beater, and just be okay with getting knocked over.
Yeah, that's it. And let them have fun. That's the biggest thing. And like, so I teach as well, right? And one of like the biggest things for me is based on that experience of taking group lessons is like, why am I learning this? Why are we learning Ode to Joy here? I don't want to learn this. I don't want to take kids into, I'm more concerned that they're having fun than even learning properly, to be totally honest. Because if they're having fun and they really enjoy it, they're going to develop the interest to learn how to do it correctly. And what I want to do first is give them tools to have fun, right? And get them hooked that way.
No, I think that's important.
Yeah, like I kind of wished someone had done that for me. I might not have wasted that first year of having the guitar.
Right? Well, I don't know if that first year, because I've seen your guitar playing and your abilities and stuff. So I don't know the first year. At least you still got started, you still got there. Right. But no, I hear you totally. It's just like if you can't gamify it a little bit, if you can't find out like what was that seed, like what was that's because I like you mentioned Back in Black. It's like personally, it's like I went from guitar to bass really quickly, but like the first time I heard Everlong by Foo Fighters, I'm like, I wanted to learn how to play that. It's like you hear the sound and I feel like with a lot of kids, be it, guitar, bass, drums, it's like they hear it and they're just like, I want to know how to make that sound. And like a good teacher, again, you can learn the fundamentals and all the theory, but it's like a good teacher to be like, okay, let's just fast track how do we make the sound, and
how do you make the sound, exactly,
and then go back to some of the form and theory.
Yeah, like I will tell a student why something is when they ask, but probably not before that, because if it's not relevant for what they're trying to learn or something that they're going to enjoy doing, then that's not really the experience I want to provide them with, So
no, it's good. And it's good too. It's like you can,
unless I thought that it was like terrible technique to be learning at this point or something like that. But more often than not, it's like just let them go do their thing and have fun,
Yeah, no, and I was going to say, it's like it's good that you can kind of see it from their perspective.
Yeah,
because how
I mean, I've been there. Yeah,
yeah, how quickly someone would be like, no, this isn't really what I want to do. But like when it's not fun, you'd rather be doing something that's fun.
Right. So I have a cousin who I think got to grade 9 in conservatory piano. And I remember her telling me that she didn't enjoy playing piano. And that was like so baffling to me that someone could be that good and skilled at something and not enjoy it. Right. Which was just like, wow, what happened here? So.
Yeah, no, it's just I don't want to say pressures, but like there's definitely external forces.
Yeah.
And like keep doing this.
That's right. So
you got to find your spark somewhere when it comes to music or any of the creatives, any of the arts. So we've decided we like playing guitar.
We decided we like it, in fact. Yeah.
Did you like in high school, late public school? Did you get into any bands or anything? Did you start jam with anybody, or
Dude,
so some songs you started learning? Or
I was so late in the game to start playing with other musicians. It happened so much later for me when I was in high school. It was just, and I think part of the reason I ended up doing this one-man band thing was maybe because a little bit of that, right? It was like, I didn't have people to jam with really. A little bit later in high school, like we did, funny enough, our high school talent show was one of the first places I ever played, and we played Everlong.
Really?
Yeah, dude. That was like one of the first songs I ever performed. Me and my buddy Seth, we couldn't decide who's taking lead. We're like, screw it, we're both going to sing. We both sang exact unison line. It was just like not the right move.
That's how we learn. It was different. We tried it.
So funny, man.
But as far as playing with other people, like was there just not other musicians like your school, or you just kind of like enjoyed working by yourself? Or
I guess it was a combination of those things. Yeah, but honestly, mostly it was just like I was a quiet kid in high school and stuff. Yeah, like I wasn't really reaching out to go find bandmates and stuff like that. So I was cool just to jam on my own, and I did for a while. And really, I didn't start jamming with people often until like my 20s. So
it kind of segues into one of my questions: the looper pedal or loop stations.
Yeah,
because like that's a big part of the sound, I would say, because you do a lot between face sounds and singing. I say face sounds because you do some.
That's a good descriptor.
Do some beats, yeah, some beats that way, and it's just drums. Like and bringing all that stuff together. When did the loop station get introduced to your setup?
That would have been, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. So, I got inspired by Ed Sheeran. That would have been the first guy that that was the tipping point. I'd seen looping before and thought it was super cool and really impressive and was really into it. I had a little looper on my Boss amp, but it was just like, you press a button, you can record a loop and play over it. And that's all it does. Whereas the looper that I ended up purchasing does a lot more than that. which if depending on how gear heavy you want to get, I could go into, but
No, go for it.
Yeah, we'll get there in a bit. But, yeah, I just decided, like, you know what, this is something that I really want to pursue. I kind of want to go all in on getting like a really nice looper here, because I've seen what this one can do. I bought an RC300 for anyone that's curious, and that's like, it lets you do a lot. It's a great tool. And I was running an acoustic showcase series called Acoustic Addiction at the time, and just like immediately started incorporating it into stuff. And, you know, I had been beatboxing, I like picked it up in high school. And so I was doing that a bunch, and just like the natural progression of like doing that and creating mouth drums against the guitar, and, you know, even drumming on the guitar itself also to get like more of a percussive bed. And then as time went on, just being like, okay, well, what else can we do here with this to sort of make it sound a little more large? And so, you know, getting a vocal processor involved, where now I can do like timed delays on my voice and make the drum textures a little different, you know, stuff like that came up a little later. But yeah, so I guess I got into looping after I saw this Ed Sheeran performance that he did when he was still on the come up. Like, it was my first time ever hearing of the guy, and it's like a 12-minute piece that he does, and it just blew my mind. And he used that looper in that video.
You mentioned, like, if it's a 12-minute piece, is a good chunk of it hearing him build the track?
Yeah, it is.
Because
which is cool, but when I do looping stuff, it's almost become a little bit of a pet peeve if I do that too much, right? I don't, because like if you're doing like a looping piece and you watch a guy build a loop for like 3 minutes, and then like he does the song, you're like, all right, cool, sick. All right, for my next song, we're gonna do that again. All right, you know. So
I think there's some pros and cons to it. Like, I've seen where people build the track, but they kind of like create a story around it. Like, there's a little bit more crowd interaction. Like, there's more than just watching someone just build a track on stage. It's like there's more interaction with it. So I think that's kind of cool. Also, just like hearing how it stacks. There's an artist, Dub Effects. And he was
one of the first guys I saw in looping.
And I remember the first time I saw like one of it, like hearing him build like chords, like cool synth, like,
it was crazy at the time when you first hear that, right?
Yeah, and it's like, and as someone who's worked in production for, you know, going on 20 years, it's like when you hear how many takes it can take somebody, especially with vocals, to get a note right, like really right. And when you hear someone do the first, the third, and the fifth, and it's just like stacked, and it's that's the thing that I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's like, that's where it freaks me out, because it's like how good you have to be to nail it. And when I see some of your performances, I see you build things, it's like there's not a lot of swings at it. It's just like, this is the part, next, this is the part, next. Like, whether that's the case or not.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't get it perfect every time, even during shows.
To the listener, though,
there have been times when I've had to just like stop and be like, nope, we're doing it again. But that's part of the nature of the beast. Is like, I really like to try to do something that I can like barely pull off, because it's like, I think it's really exciting and the crowd can pick up on that. You know, if it's like this friggin' loop that I'm trying to wrangle almost, you know, but then are able to like pull it off on the spot type of thing. It's and you know, that's exciting for me. So
while we're talking about loop stuff, this is definitely part of my notes, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm of the sort, I can barely stand and play guitar. I cannot make vocal noises and play guitar, or it's just, I don't have the coordination's not there.
Yeah.
How much mental gymnastics is really going on?
So much, man.
Singing, guitar, footwork.
It's a long time to build it. It's like, you know, the process of learning music is a process of mental compartmentalization. So like, you know, if you're learning how to play a G chord, you can just say that now that you've played guitar for a bunch of years and you know what to do with your fingers. But when you're first learning, there's like, I got to put my arm here. Then I got to put my arm here. Then I got to put this finger here, this. And then I got to hold it down this way. And then I got to do this. That's like 8 things you got to keep track of. But eventually, if you've put enough hours into it, it's one thing, right? So it's just like, if you spent enough hours like slowing things down and trying to figure out all the timings of everything, you'd eventually learn a whole bunch of like, they're almost like rudiments, because there's like certain types of coordination that come up over and over again with looping, where like you're hitting a loop on the one of the beat as your voice is doing something else. But I've done that before now. And so it's not the hardest thing to do in another context. But the first time I tried to learn it, it was like learning how to do any other musical endeavor, right? It takes a lot of time. So I describe it as being like a similar process as learning any other instrument. Like the looper is its own instrument, and it's like having a live producer, right? So the same thing that, you know, you got to coordinate between your voice and your guitar. And as soon as you can make that one thing, maybe you can take on a second, right? And just sort of build it that way. So it's just a lot of time, really.
Well, from an audience perspective, like it looks effortless and it looks seamless, but at the same time, from the musician side of it, it's like I can understand and appreciate the amount of hours of practice that goes into it. Because I can only imagine how long it probably takes to kind of, you know, get a hold of the reins on that.
Yeah,
on loop station or looper pedal.
It's a process, man. Yeah.
And just while we're here, any advice for someone looking to get into using a looper pedal? Like any things you're just like, this will help fast track you a little bit.
Buy a really cheap one off Amazon first before you go all in on something like that, I think, because the technology has gotten really cheap and it's a lot of fun just to mess around with. And if you're having fun with that after like a month still, then look at some higher up options. But, you know, the other thing too is just like, don't get frustrated with yourself. It's really hard to time. And it takes a lot of attempts, right? But the barrier of entry is like $40-$50. So if you already have an electric guitar or whatever, right? Or whatever other instrument, I would love to see someone like looping on a kazoo. I don't care. Just like, you can make it work. I'm going to YouTube that after it's out there. 100%.
Could be, again, the content creation. Could be a new thing that's not out there yet.
And if it's not,
yikes. So kind of moving out of high school, you go to post-secondary. When did you decide you wanted to go to school for music, or just?
Once I was already in school for radio, which was what I went there for first. I have a degree in radio broadcasting. I just ended up not pursuing the field. But that even was like a good primer in production skills, because we learned Pro Tools there, right? So, you know, I would go to Seneca at York, which is where I went. It was like a 2-year program. And our main radio room had a window that you could look into the independent music production room. And I was always looking in there like, yo, that looks so cool. You know, like holding instruments and people are drumming while we're having our lesson. And so, you know, the big move is like, I'm going next door.
It's a grass is greener thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I can specifically remember, though, it was like 4th semester of radio and like walking to the buses and being like, okay, I'm coming back here again. I'm going to take independent music production. I'm going to do it, you know, and just making that decision and then applying and getting in. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
And what was with your skill set already going into it? What was that like? Like, what did you kind of learn there?
The biggest thing I got out of that, I think, was that like it helped me feel solid in my identity as a musician, really, because I went in as, and still am, kind of like a hodgepodge of interests as far as the musician is concerned, right? Like I remember on my application, there was like a dubstep song, an acoustic instrumental, and some other tertiary thing that was equally weird and like different. So, you know, I guess not much has changed. But yeah, just doing that, it gave me a lot of general skill sets. We learned how to write grants. We learned how to produce a lot better in Pro Tools. We got a lot more in depth. Alf, who works at Metalworks, and he's around like all of these conferences still, taught us a whole bunch of great tricks for, you know, just learning what EQing is and compression and like, you know, basic stuff that you should know in order to be able to mix and do your own stuff. Was all learned there. And yeah, I carried that out of school and just felt ready to try and hit it up. I got into performing live while I was in that course also. I like played in open mics, but I got my first paying gig for like $30 at Sneaky D's in like my first few weeks in school. And I remember thinking I was such a badass having a $30 gig. Man.
I'm curious with your course, did they talk much about music business or how to run your music as a business?
Yeah, they did. they kind of had it broken down into what they called thirds, but it was more like a quarter of the course was focused on music business. So, or at least like skills that pertain to musicians. So that was like grant writing and also like Photoshop and learning how to do some of that. So,
getting into paid gigs, and I want to say like it'd be hard to explain what you do sometimes.
Yeah.
To some people. So, trying to get gigs and book gigs, has it been difficult when you've got so many different genres that you cover and you're under your solo name? Like, has it been a challenge that way, or is it, how does it kind of work?
It kind of works just like, because of that, like I don't want to go and do metal drum and bass for the bar of people who are there to have acoustic music. I won't tell them I do that, you know. I'll just sort of have my set ready for that and position myself that way, and, you know, depending on what the gig is, you know. And that's kind of been how that's worked, you know. So I'm not gonna come and invite them to watch the Mike Langford podcast where I divulge everything I've been doing musically. I'll select a specific thing. So
do you have like different reels and different kind of EPKs?
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of like having the
on?
YouTube channel that's really useful for that, is like, here's some of what I do, these 2 specific videos, you know. So, but depending on who it is, and if I'm going to try and book like the Bovine, I'll probably send them that metal drum and bass stuff, you know, because that's appropriate there. So
coming out of school, you're starting to get some gigs. You feel like you got a foundation to get busy with music. You're doing busking up to venue shows?
No, busking came a little bit later. So the first thing that I got into primarily, which I was really lucky to figure this out, but remember I said like I got my first paying gig, and then they kind of offered me a second at another bar, and then I got the chance to book my own show after that at that same bar. And that was my first time ever trying to book anything. So I ended up doing all my own gigs for like the first couple of years, and I ran a concert series called Acoustic Addiction. And so I would go and scout out like a few different acoustic acts in the city and go and play a lot of open mics. Was like hosting at Free Times Cafe on Mondays often enough, and would just invite like 3 musicians every 2-3 months. You'd book out a venue and I would play a set in there somewhere. And we had like a crowd that was slowly growing in size for that type of thing. And we did that for a few years. So that was like me first getting into performing, was like, I kind of promoted my way in, I guess, you know, not promoted, but I just sort of like cold asked like, hey, let me put on the show here. I'm going to run this acoustic showcase series thing that I have an idea for. And a lot of my good early shows were doing that. And also as like a more folk singer-songwriter oriented performer, because that was, I would go on stage with an acoustic guitar. That was my gear at the time. I didn't know anything else, you know, and I was still finding out what I wanted to do. So
this is the hustle.
So then we were doing an Acoustic Addiction at the Elma Combo before it closed. And Indie Week, or like one of the volunteer coordinators that was working there at the time, had caught wind of that. And I was applying, and they had me on like a waiting list type thing. They're like, oh, this guy looks like he's like out and hustling and doing stuff. Look, he's got this gig at the Elmo. You know what? Let's book him for a judged showcase. And so that was 2014 was my first year playing Indie Week. And that became like a huge staple for me in terms of just like having a community built out in local music and being like, yeah, I want to really be more involved in this and getting into the festival circuit. You know how it is. It's like, it blows your mind the first time you do it. So
you got scouted to do Indie Week. Is that the one where you placed third on that one, or was that later on?
Oh, that was like years later. We did.
Okay, it was
first
just
year I
like...
did it. Yeah, but it was Indie Week. The first year we did it, we got to semifinals. I was super excited about that, and I didn't even know it at the time. But in that semifinal round, I saw Alex Van Briggle play. I just didn't know it was him. We later were like, "Yo, did we play the same show together? Not know it?" Sweet. Like the amount of times that's been true for musicians must be staggering. But yeah, I've been doing Indie Week every year ever since, really.
It's a great festival. It's a great conference. It's good times. That is one of the things that I missed the most last year, because I do enjoy going to the festivals and the conferences.
Yeah,
you get to see a lot of people just in the hallways you haven't seen, and get to see some bands. And like, I know we've tried to do it online last year.
Yeah, it was.
I was missing it so much.
Yeah, dude.
Going and actually interact, because sometimes like that's the only chance we get to see people in real life because we're busy doing stuff and we can kind of get together.
And like annually, I kind of made it a point of like, you know, if whatever's going on in life, I'm going to try and clear out my schedule and like make a little vacation out of Indie Week. And I would go see like 40 or 50 shows in in like 5 days, right? Or see like that many bands perform. It was nuts, man. So fun.
Yeah, it can be a tough schedule for some people who are new to it. Because it's like between, you know, say the conference starts at like 9 or something. It's like you're there all afternoon. You eat something quick, and then you go start seeing bands and just hanging out and stuff. And it's just, I did miss that a lot last year. And again, like I did tune in to some of the stuff that was going on online, but it just wasn't. It did not scratch the same itch.
It's true, man. Like I, on more than one Indie Week have ended sick. Just like I just went too hard. That one where the third place one you were mentioning, I performed at Mod Club with a fever. It was just like, oh man, I went too hard.
Because you probably play what, 3 times if you make it to the final?
Yeah, exactly. So that would be the third one.
Yeah, and it's like you can't phone them in because like you start seeing the competition, especially when you get into like semifinals. You're like, okay, everyone's gunning for it now.
Yeah.
Like the first show's fun, second one's like gets a little bit serious, and then
even a lot of instances like the first show where people are just in like that first round, it's like great talent. If people are going and doing those judge showcases, a lot of them are like amazing. So yeah.
No, and also too from a musician point of view, it's nice to see other bands and artists that are making a go of it. And this is not a knock or a slight against some bands that may be playing local shows and stuff, but like they're playing once every 3 or 4 months. It's a get together for friends and family or some other band. Like it kind of is it's its own ecosystem. But when you're doing some of these judge showcases where you're against other bands that are looking a bit past that, it's like, I think there's some value to see what other bands are doing. Even one of the ones that stuck out, there's a band called Moontan.
Oh my God, of course. Yeah.
I think they're from Winnipeg.
Yo, give me 1 sec. Hold on.
As soon as they walked in, look
at that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, okay. We did not plan this. We did not plan Everlong. We did not plan this. But as soon as they walked in, you could just feel the vibe from the other bands being like, oh no, either they're awesome or we have nothing to worry about, and they're making it because they got like makeup and like outfits, but they came in dressed, ready to go. And they took it that night. I think they actually ended up winning
they did. They won their year. And I remember their singer pacing the hallway downstairs for like 2 hours going over vocal warm-ups, looking like he wasn't even there. He was in like some super hyper focus mode, and it was just like intense to be around him. And then he got on stage and killed it, and they won.
Yeah,
it was like holy.
Yeah, but it's things like that where like with some bands and artists, like it's good to be around other musicians with a healthy competition to see what they're doing. You know, I don't think anyone really wants to see someone go on stage and fail, but when you see someone go on stage and kill it, you're just like, oh, that's what that looks like. I want to do this. And find your way of doing that. You don't need to have for Moontan, like you don't always need to have the makeup and the boots and the pants. It's part of their show, but yeah, no, I think there's a lot of value there. Like it's one thing if you want to go play for fun, cool, I get it. But if you're trying to make that next step, it's like you need to be on bills with other bands and artists where you're like, this is what separates them.
Right.
Even when you talk about Mobius Radio, it's like you talk about even between the songs, you got, you know, voiceovers, Jeff Woods. It's like these things all come together to raise the production value. Yeah,
just to leave someone with an experience of like, whoa, that was a step up. I mean, hopefully, right? So
yeah, it's more than seeing or hearing a band get on stage and you're just like, okay, they just took what they did in their rehearsal space and they put it on stage,
right?
You know, for 45 minutes, and it's like that. That's cool, but like it's not the same as like a show,
right? Yeah, exactly. That's sort of that thing with Mobius Radio. I kind of wanted it to be more like a show, you know, where it's like this is come into our world for like 40, 50 minutes. And like we're gonna try to keep you there for the whole time, and then when it's done, you'll be like, "Whoa, that was a show," you know. I remember another band that I had that moment of watching them kill live was the first time I saw Crownlands. And that was like, also a contributing factor to, in my mind, going, okay, the 2-piece thing can work, right? Because they have it down so good, obviously. But yeah, you see that and you're just like, this was different. This, you could just feel it from the energy of the room after that. This is what it looks like when a band kills it.
Yeah. So it again, that's one of the upsides, or one of the one of the benefits of getting into something like Indie Week, where you're in those judge showcases. Also, just the feedback, because I've been
so valuable.
I've been a judge for several years. Some people just phone it in, and just like they're nice about everything, but it's like I feel like for every 2 positives, there's usually several things I would work on.
Yeah.
But like if you don't give them proper feedback, like. What you're not really doing your job is trying to critique, and you're not trying to crap on it. It's just like you're looking for things like these are the things that I'd pick apart if we're trying to get to the next level.
Yeah, this is what you got to improve on. And I'd have to go back and look at the sheets that I got, but I'd be curious to see now, because I remember that feedback being like super valuable. And I'm wondering now, if I look at it, if I can trace a line to some specific thing that I do today, just from getting that feedback, right?
I'm just thinking, I don't think I had much to say about Moontan's performance. I think I pretty much wrote like good luck in the finals. Good luck in the finals. Yeah. You killed it. When did you start busking, and what kind of triggered that?
When did I start busking? God, again, I wish I could name a specific first.
And was it acoustic guitar? Did you just?
It would have been acoustic guitar.
Just acoustic, just kept it.
Yeah, it would have been an acoustic guitar, and probably around like North York Center area, so like up near Young and Finch, and just sort of off on the side. And I mean, I would still go busk that way. Actually, it can be a lot of fun being unplugged like that, in like a quieter area, right? But I was just like, first of all, the first thing that occurred to me is you can make more money than I thought you could. So, there have been some really good days busking. And I look forward to more when it's, I can't go downtown or do it right now. It's not quite safe enough to do that, in my opinion. But yeah, it can be a hotspot if you set up right for it. But yeah, man, it's an interesting game to try and play. Like there's little things you learn about, even like different cities have their own laws around it. And Toronto's is okay, but it's illegal to busk with an amp, for instance.
Really?
But then at some point I learned that
could have fooled me.
You will make more money busking with an amp and fighting tickets than you will not using an amp generally.
Really?
I haven't been ticketed before, but I know people who have, and they are like, yeah, we're going to keep playing with an amp,
So someone with a drum machine playing a pan flute, that's illegal because they've got an amp with them?
Yeah. But a drum kit, by the way, is fine.
Okay, so you put the speaker inside the kick drum, and and just air drum over top of it, you're good. Right.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of rules like that where it's at that point I'm like, I'm just going to use my common sense here and say that I'm not playing louder than a drum kit. But actually, if I'm going downtown to like Yonge and Dundas, I'm probably going to try and be about that loud because it's a busy area. There's a lot of foot traffic and a lot going on. So you got to be geared up to do something a little bigger. And so I bust out the whole Mobius Radio looping rig when I go busk downtown. Because I don't think that anyone's going to give a crap about me playing Hey, Hey, My. But if you're in like the Distillery District, maybe, or let me think of a better example, like outskirts of the city areas in public parks where it's a little quieter and just places where you'd find acoustic music, that is the right thing to do there. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun over the years to just try and suss out and find out what are the best ways to go about doing all this, right? And even I spent a little bit of time trying to busk in Montreal because their laws in Montreal and Quebec around busking are very interesting. They have some really cool systems in place there for buskers.
How so interesting?
So there's, in the Montreal subway system, they have all these signs up on the wall that have harps on them. And in the morning at around 6 o'clock, a worker from the station will go and put a piece of paper and a pencil in behind these signs. And buskers can walk up and in 2-hour slots, sign their name up to claim the spot to go busk in the subway. No license required. And it's just like a first come, first serve daily system. You go, you write your name in a few different stations. You go home, you chill for a few hours, you gather your stuff, and you go and you do your busking for whatever length of time you've booked yourself for. And that's legal there. And then, you know, you can go and audition once per year for some specific locations in the subway that see more foot traffic. You audition yourself in and you get almost like a residency at a specific spot in the subway through an audition process. And that just seems so much more inviting than the CTC just being like, you get to audition once per 3 years. And on the streets of Toronto, there's no amplification allowed, you know?
You audition once per 3 years in Toronto.
Yeah, man.
You have to wait, 1,000 days to try again?
You had license once every 3 years. And that was coming out of independent music production at Seneca. It was like a couple days after I graduated, I had an audition. The timing lined up that way. And I thought that was going to be my gig getting out. And I missed the cutoff point by like a percentile or something. So
that's bonkers. I didn't realize it was like that. I know that like I've heard from friends that you can make a good few dollars busking.
Yeah,
you know, if you hit it right, especially when people are coming out of movies or coming out of sporting events or whatever, like you can do pretty good. I dare say when people are show drunk or sports drunk or something, it's like you can do pretty well.
I'm waiting for Eminem to come tour Toronto so I can just sit outside a show and busk. Honestly, I think I'll probably make a bunch of money doing that.
This kind of ties in another question I had. Do you have any like go-to busking songs or kind of like pretty solid crowd pleasers that you'll?
I would say I have like probably honestly like an hour to an hour and a half of material that I cycle through, and then if I'm getting bored, I'll start improvising some stuff or just do something else that comes to mind. But crowd pleasers are like Crab Bucket by Chaos, which is one that like Toronto people would know, and it's like just very dancey and upbeat, so people tend to really like it even if they don't know the song. And then All Along the Watchtower is another. Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd, stuff like that.
What Pink Floyd tune?
Time. Yeah, I do another Brick in the Wall too, but Time is one of those ones that's like, I don't know. That's more like just, I think the arrangement of it's a lot of fun. It's done a little bit more up tempo.
I'm always curious with, especially solo artists, like what is your go-to for covers and stuff like that? Cause I'm always curious, like, because you want to play what people, not say you want to play what people want to hear, but it's just like when you get the reaction, you're just like, oh, we'll just keep that in the back pocket. Yeah,
of course. And like, what are you going on stage to not try and entertain people? Like, but a lot of people do. What happened?
People, I play music for me. It's like, but when you play music for everyone, it's a lot more fun.
Do you want to play music for you in front of 100 people if no one else is going to enjoy it?
Yeah, because then like 100 people probably aren't enjoying it. Then you really are playing music for you.
Ideally, you find something for you that everyone else enjoys, you know? And for me, like probably the most requested cover I get to do is The Real Slim Shady. And I love playing that every time I play it. It's so fun to go through.
You do a pretty good job of it.
Thanks, man.
You know, and again, for anyone who hasn't seen it, because you got it up online. But again, it's just like hearing it. It's fun, it's playful, and it's really well executed.
Thanks. So. It's that's the back pocket one, but not for busking. I've gone into like scenarios before where I start playing it and I'm like on the first two lines, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of swearing in the song. And I'm playing very loud on the street. And then like get ready for another layer of compartmentalization because now we're gonna censor it. And like that gets into its own whole mess. Is just like, how many times does M say the F word in the song and how many times do I have to
just kind of
be conscious of that? Yeah.
Tight lip through that. I can only imagine. I've heard a couple slips on the radio. I've listened to a lot of pop radio, just listening to it. And it, cause like a lot of the songs, like they are censored, pop radio censored, go figure. But like some stuff slips through and you're just like, I wonder if they get fined for that. Or I wonder, cause someone had to clear that clean version.
It must be different than it used to be. Like I see the language that people are able to get away with in public spaces now is very different than it used to be. Right. And the word selection too. There were things that you used to say, but then you couldn't say the F word. Right. And now I feel like the F word is like one of the least offensive swear words you can say to somebody.
as SpongeBob would say, now it's just a sentence enhancer.
Yeah, that's right. It's a sentence enhancer. Oh. I love
Um, okay, with the I'm still like thinking about the honor system in Montreal of just writing your name on a piece of paper.
It
Because
was
like
so cool, man.
I don't know if that would work in Toronto. I don't know how it works in Toronto, but I just don't know if that worked that well in Toronto.
Neither do I, but it seems to be working there. At the very least, it gives people a legal avenue to go and do that right away, right? And
I think
almost
that
be an
it's
asshole.
good to support the music. Just thinking, solo artist. Is there any shows in particular where you can think back to and you're just like, there's a lot of people here, and like I got to execute, and like, because I think there's something about being on stage by yourself. It's one thing to go on stage like with your band, and like
Right.
you're kind of like a mini what's the word I'm looking for? Your little gang in a way, like a very
and it's all on me.
and you've kind of everyone's there, but when you're a solo artist, it's like it really is on you. It's like sink or swim.
Yeah. So one of the nice things is that if I am in loops and my guitar gets unplugged or something, at least it doesn't go dead quiet. So it is a little bit like having a band there with you, right? Maybe not quite the same, because then it's like all the instruments in the band unplugged at once, but the music kept playing. It still looks really awkward, but it's not as bad. But like, yeah, is there a specific instance?
Just a show you can think of where you're just like, there's a good amount of people here, and
I had to better execute. And one more to that is I went on stage knowing that I wasn't going to, and somehow flipped it around. So this was the Oshawa Music Hall. I got the chance to open for Finger 11 and I Mother Earth. They've had a lot of really good local bands open for them over their touring. Like, they've been doing their co-headline thing around Canada for like a while now, and like, I think it was Drop Top Alibi. I've done stuff with them, and just like, they've been good about having some local support. So I got the chance to go open for them, but I don't know what it was. I got on stage, I set up my gear, and it was making all this weird hissing noise, and it sounded terrible, and I couldn't get it to sound right. And even though there was no one else in the venue yet, and they hadn't let anybody in, the sound guy was like, "You got to get off. It's too late for you. Too bad. You're just going to have to deal with it the way it sounds." I'm like, "Don't you want things to sound good for the show, though? We can just spend 5 more minutes and fix this." And he was just like not having it. He just like muted my channels. And it was like, "Good luck."
Thanks.
What? Yeah. So then it was a sold out show. There's like 700 people there inside of the Oshawa Music Hall. And Doug from 94.9 gives me like this really nice intro. And I get on stage being like, I'm about to plug my guitar in and bomb because it sounds friggin' terrible up here. And I had like a pre-recorded sound to play just at the top of the first song that I was playing. And that sound came through nice and crispy clear. I was like, oh my God, hold on, wait, I might have this. Like I can't explain the dread I had knowing I was walking up to just bad gear that wasn't working. So to flip it on and like just have it suddenly work, it was like, oh my God, maybe I can pull this one out. And yeah, it ended up being a great show. But oh my God, I've never went into a show more nervous.
And you don't remember? They don't know what the difference was. It just wasn't happening, and then all of a sudden it was.
I can't remember what it was. I did find out, and it was like a small gear thing that it was like something as simple as flipping a switch, right? Where it's like, oh, if I just had this one thing slightly changed, it would have sounded fine. And so it must have been something that they were able to fix on the board. But then that sound guy, for being a little bit of an ass to me, gave me some very good advice technically around my rig, and just being like, hey, you need to find a way to separate your signal so I can have individual control of your vocal and your guitar. And I was like, what? That's not possible with the looping stuff. And as I began working at Long and McQuaid and like just knowing more about gear, I eventually found a way to do it. And it made a huge difference on the sound. So
that's actually a pretty good segue.
Hey,
you working at Long McQuaid Music Store here in Canada. Just the angle from it, there's a bit of stigma around musicians working at music stores.
Right.
Just like there's a bit of stigma around people like musicians or people working in production teaching. Because there's that saying, those who can do and those who can't teach, sort of thing. And there's the stigma around working at, and I can defend teaching recording. I think it's fun. I have a lot of fun with students.
Yeah.
But there's the stigma around people that are working at a music store, almost as like it's a last stop. But in my opinion, it's like, well, why would you not want to work somewhere where you'd have access to perhaps some deals or
Yeah, so
network, or
it's
how was your
it's an
experience there?
opportunity if you take it correctly. You do see some people that, but they're like, someone could also go and work at a music store, and there's a lot of people that are like this that are just like hobby musicians, and they find a hobby shop to work at, and that's great for them. I also worked with a lot of other hustling musicians, and a lot of them moved on to some bigger and better opportunities for themselves. But yeah, you're right. It's a very valuable experience. Like, I got a lot of great technical lessons working at Long and McQuaid. And it's a weird stigma. It's like you get the chance to be involved with your skills and develop them. It's almost like getting paid to go to school, right? And if you sort of look at it that way, you'll get that out of it, right? And I did.
It's a network.
It's you get your networking in, you get to know some of the companies and how they work, and just get like the technical know-how around a lot of gear that like I didn't know. A lot of things. I'm not going to give too many examples because it is technical.
No, I'm thinking too. It's just like the idea of what we talked about earlier. This like when kids have access to instruments to learn. The idea, when I think of even the local one for me for Long McQuaid, like the idea if you can go in and mess around with things and just access to certain things and doing like if you're working in rentals or something, it's like things that keep getting rented. How PAs work, how actual wireless microphones work. There's things that are common that other musicians might not have access to. It's like, why would that be a bad thing? And you get a paycheck.
If I hadn't worked in the PA rental department there, that wasn't like where I was positioned, but I got a lot of experience kind of all over the store. And from that experience in PA rentals, I learned how to rig up in-ear monitoring rigs. And I got one like installed into my pedal board so that Alex on drums can hear my loops and can control the volume of vocal versus guitar from his body pack. And just being able to figure out how to run the wiring correctly to get that going is something that would have been way beyond me before. And, you work with like a hive mind there of people who are all kind of in this together. Same thing with teaching too, is like, again, you're getting paid to not only pass on knowledge, but when you do that, like, it reinstills it in yourself. So it's almost like your own self-study period at the same time, right? Which is like a great benefit of teaching. I think that's probably a little bit undervalued, is you learn from teaching, or at least you relearn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say with the teaching side of things, like you can understand something, but until you have to explain it to someone who doesn't understand it at all, how well do you really understand it to be able to communicate it?
Yeah.
And like that's what slowed me down so much with like getting into teaching, because you just do things just like when you're talking about like all those movements to play a G chord. It's like you don't even think about it, but when someone's like slow down and you're like, and you do slow down, and then they're like, no, seriously, like slow down a lot, and you're like, I don't know how to make this any slower to what we're trying. And right. You really break it down into the parts. But when you're talking about some of the technical things that a place like Long McQuaid, like you in the hive mind, it's like you are within a network of people that probably want to learn more as well. Like I imagine you got some people that just go in and they just go in and punch the clock sort of thing, but at the same time, I imagine other people there that see it as you're saying, like it's a stepping stone to something else, or it's a way to just kind of stay immersed in what they want to learn.
Yep. And again, like from a mixing perspective, like again, I went to school for independent music production, and then a few years out of school, I found myself in a position where I had a computer that just like wasn't working. I got very much more into live, and I just stopped paying attention to producing entirely. And that was like a big mistake on my end. I just had no output on like recorded music for years. It was just all live, right? And then the pandemic comes and I have like nothing online that people can go and look at. So, but then working at Long and McQuaid, a recording guy at the North York location, Igor, has been there for like 20 years and just knows so much and has like seen everything by now, right? in terms of like just going on every showroom floor for all these companies, and like the company would fly him out to the States because he's like head of engineering at the store, and like he would go and hang out at PreSonus or like Spitfire Audio would invite him in for a presentation or whatever it was. And so he was just willing to impart knowledge because like it benefits him if people can help him with his job. So I would always just go ask him about stuff about recording, and he was happy to lay out a bunch of information for me, and then began being like, you know what? Bring in a mix of something that you're working on and I'll give you some feedback on it. And he really mentored me a lot in my time there. And I got back into mixing and recording, and I got some gear on the other side, like on both sides of the computer. You can see over here, I got some HS8s, and just like getting some proper equipment to like work with was like such a huge difference. And having someone to be able to show it to me that you're working with, and in that context, you're making some money, you're getting some good advice, you're learning. It's a good gig.
And you're building out your network. And the other thing I'd probably add, it's like in any career, any industry, it really, well, it gets down to your network, but what is actually, I believe, underneath that, it gets down to collisions. And it's like, if you're never in a position where you can collide with other people that are interested in what you're doing, it doesn't matter how good you are at something. If no one has access to you, and even to get back to the festivals and stuff, it's like, go to the conference, because it's all collisions, because you see everyone that you're trying to email and trying to get a hold of. And it's like, you're so far ahead somebody that's like, oh, I sent an email and they didn't write me back. So I guess either they're a jerk or they don't like it.
You know who's a good example of that? Do you know who JP Sachs is?
Yep.
Yeah. So did you ever
did pretty well
see him
last year?
Sorry?
Did pretty well last year.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like 500 million streams on Spotify and like Grammy nominations.
Yeah, he did all right.
But that's a guy who was just like out hustling the open mic scene in Toronto. Like every open mic I went to when I was first getting into it, he was there. You know, I don't know if I'd have pinned him to be the guy to blow up that successful, but it was a good example of like 7 years later, it just shows that if you're out there doing that all the time, you're going to have those collisions. And he's really talented and was able to go and take some good risks, move down to LA and do his thing there. But like the collision factor is so real. Exactly what you're saying is like, he was constantly in a spot to have that happen. And everyone knows JP Sachs because he's at every open mic every day. Right.
No, you make that your thing. And again, it's like you find out where people are and you go there.
Yeah. It wasn't rocket science for him. It's just like, I'm going to write these good acoustic pop songs. I'm going to go play them everywhere.
Yeah.
Come find me in 10 years.
I have to rant for a second because I feel like I need to externalize every 6 months. But like some of the worst advice I've heard, especially other producers, other people in the music industry, and they tell a band or an artist, just keep working on your songs. Just, stay in the rehearsal space. Just keep woodshedding, keep honing your craft. And part of me is like, I get that. Get in front of people. Try to get out on the road. Try to like find these opportunities that you can get, because you can rehearse 20 times. If you go on stage and suck once, you're going to get way better fast. Because you can suck all day like at rehearsal and not worry about it. Like no one's there. You go on stage, just bomb, and then you're like, we got to get better. Like now. And that's why bands on tour, if you can go play 20 shows in 30 days, you get really good real fast.
Even a band that's gigging often will notice like the 2 or 3 spots to make a mistake in the show and still have that feeling of like, oh my God, I got to tighten that up. Whereas if you're doing it in rehearsal, you're like, whatever.
You're like, I just won't do that. I won't mess it up next time. But it's just like, if you have an issue on stage, you're like, okay. That being said, I kind of have my leeway is like 3 things that I would notice on stage. Cause like, even,
something's going to go wrong usually.
Yeah. No, I just, even
perfect
super pro players. It's just like, even Ben Spivak last week, he's like, we're on, I think he was on Conan O'Brien or something. And he's just like, or Jimmy Kimmel or something. And he's just like, I flubbed a note. And it's like a super pro bass player, but it's just like, it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Anyways, getting back to the L&M thing, just advice for anybody that's considering maybe getting a job at a music store, or just anybody that's like part of an industry that's just like, I'm not sure about taking this as a job.
Then think about taking it as schooling.
Think of it as education.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing I got out of it, and a bunch of deals on gear, which a lot of those. Yeah.
No, that's a good way.
But that's actually a very real consideration too. You'll probably get access to a lot of equipment. Like a part of me being there was like, I want to acquire the gear that I'm going to want to use for the rest of my life, at least for like the very foreseeable future. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for that too. But the biggest thing for sure is just the education that you get out of it.
The idea of treating it like education, would you consider maybe putting a rough cap on how many years or how much time you would spend?
What I tended to notice was about 2 or 3 years once you watch that industry go through a couple cycles, because it follows the calendar year. When you get into Christmas, everything gets super busy, and then during the summer it's pretty chill. But yeah, the other thing is not an easy job. It's it could be really stressful, so just be
demanding.
But it's good that it's demanding of you, because it means that you're alert and you're gonna learn a lot while you're there. Because I've also worked in music stores that were like mom and pop shops that I hardly did anything while I was there, and I didn't really get anything out of it at all. So you can get out of it what you decide that you want to get out of it while you're in that environment, right? Specifically, Long and McQuaid is it can be intense, and
I
so
imagine
if
it
you're gonna
can
go and apply for something like that. Also, this is advice I gave to a friend of mine that was applying for a job there. Go to your interview wearing a suit and tie, mean business. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing though, is you just got to treat it like education. And then if you identify that you're no longer getting anything out of it, it's time to move on.
No, I think it's excellent advice. And again, I see the pros and cons of it, but for a lot of people that are considering that as a job, and I think what you're saying, 2-3 years, that's something you can wrap your head around. And I always think of 3 years as 1,000 days. It's the idea of 1,000 days where you can learn something, maybe get some deals on gear, build out your network. Why would you not take that opportunity if it was presented?
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, what was I going to say? I don't remember. I'm blanking here, man.
Lon McQuaid, friend,
an hour 15.
It's all good. I'm glad we could chat about the Lon McQuaid thing for a little bit, because I still remember when I got into school, because I originally went to school for TV and film, and just knowing the instructors were still working, but chatting with one of the instructors there, and he's just I have a family. This is stable paycheck. It allows me to go home, but I can still work on some other projects, but I don't have to hustle like I used to make sure those projects were still going. And so there's some upsides that way. So as a musician, it's you probably still, for the most part, have your evenings to be able to do something if you need to. So I see the upsides of a job like that.
There is a lot. Yeah, there really is. I got to warn though that there is an amount of a sedentary lifestyle that you could develop if you stayed there too long, I think, because I've seen that happen a lot to people, right? But that isn't as soon as you take the job. That happens after 15 years when you go, oh man, I haven't played a gig in 10 years. What happened?
Yeah, I can imagine that.
But that'll happen with so many things in life. What's the difference if it's at a music store versus if you were working at Costco? You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter.
So I'm curious how deep those deals are at Costco, though.
You thought bulk was cheap before. Oh boy.
Okay, we can move on from Lon McQuaid. I'm glad we could chat about that for a few minutes. I got a couple more questions. 2 shots of Hennessy.
Yay, sick. Cool.
For anyone for people that are listening, you want to explain what that is?
Me and my dad like to play some music together, and he raised me on music and live music. I remember him jamming around with his friends, and I used to hang out at the rehearsal space because he used to play hand drums and sing in this little band with just some friends. They never gigged or anything, but I kind of got that experience of being in a room with him, seeing that. And then over the years he started just making music with different people and setting up a couple small gigs and stuff like that. So really he started gigging before I did, but he started gigging much later in life. So, and then at some point, the tables turned where I was like, hey, why don't you come on one of these gigs with me? Come to Free Times Cafe. I'm hosting. Come on up and let's do some songs together. And, it was only natural that after enough time, me and him would start making some music together. And it's just the coolest thing to get to share that with him, I think a lot of people see that, and everyone hopes they can have something like that with someone that's close to them in their life. And oftentimes people do with maybe not necessarily their dad, but it could be their brother or someone else in their family in another way. But, it's just like watching a special connection sort of take form and like enjoy that together. And we really feel that a lot when we play. So at some point, I guess it was like 3 years ago, we just decided, I guess that name Two Shots of Hennessy had come up at some point in conversation. I was like, hey, you know what? Let me just make a Facebook page for Two Shots of Hennessy, and let's see if we can go and do some gigs under that name. I really want to take this opportunity in life to have some time for us to do this together, and I'm really glad we did. Like, we've gotten to do a handful of really cool gigs, and he's got to play places that he used to go to when he was like my age, right? And where he's just like, no way am I like 60 and just like getting out gigging and hanging out in clubs now. What the hell? So, but yeah, we've had a lot of really fun gigs together, specifically over COVID too. We've got to do a whole bunch of live streams together, and we're actually going on July 3rd to go play at my grandpa's retirement home, give those guys some entertainment. And he's only ever seen us perform like one other time, which was also during COVID at that same retirement home last year. So, it's like this cool, like circle of life thing to get to do that with him. But yeah, it's Two Shots of Hennessy is acoustic folk featuring Doug and Dylan Hennessy.
Had you been playing music together before that, or did that
jamming around, but like just, nothing too crazy?
I'm curious. Number one, are there kind of your go-to songs for Two Shots of Hennessy?
I guess, but there's a lot of them now, and that's mostly
like what are 3 or 5 tunes that are like
that we love to play?
Yeah.
Oh man, ones that come to mind first, oddly enough, is a Dream Theater song. We cover one
Dream
of the
Theater.
Yeah, we cover a Dream Theater ballad.
Okay.
Eyes. We do that at a lot of shows. He can rip a mean blues harmonica, and we have this one song by a guy named Charlie Musselwhite called Life Will Be Better When You're Not In It, which is hilarious. And he rips like a mean harmonica solo in that song. And what else? He's got like this Tom Waits gravelly sort of voice. So we do House Where Nobody Lives by Tom Waits. That'd be another one. And then it's hard for me to quantify because a couple of years ago, we ended up picking up a residency at Thornhill Pub where we got to play together every Friday for like half a year. That was like the coolest thing in the world to me. It was like, yeah, we got a regular gig together where we can work our chops and just enjoy hanging out, right? And make some money, give some good vibes to people. And that was like a very special period in life where we had this regular gig we got to do. But in that time, we also built out like 3 hours of music to do every week, right? So there's a lot of songs in that one, but those are the first ones that come to mind from it.
Again, the Dream Theater tune. I'm just like, I'm like, yeah, sounds about right. I can't imagine it because I need to check into that one, but that's pretty rad.
Yeah, we should record it.
Dynamics of the group when you're going to play these shows, like who's kind of taking the lead on what's happening?
It depends on the gig, but generally it tends to be a pretty up the middle split of who's singing.
Well, not even that, just like picking the set or just kind of like, because usually someone's kind of got to do the tour
like,
managing.
We
of
definitely
the show.
do that together. We sit down with a big old list of songs and we just think about like, okay, we could do this one, then this one, and we'll just like number our set list and make some rough notes and then take it up there with us and kind of firm it up on the fly, I guess. We also do like a Sailing Club Award show annually. We've done like 8 years in a row. So wow, has it been that long? I guess I have been playing with him for a little longer. It just hasn't been under the Two Shots of Hennessy name, but yeah, we'll make the set list together for like those gigs, for instance, right? Where just you sit with a big old list of songs, and me and him have a coffee or a beer, depending on what time of day it is, and just pick some out.
No, it's awesome. When I see that stuff online, like, I think it's great. I'll also just like when you're talking about the full circle, it's like I would imagine there was something in the back of your father's mind just being like, I hope he picks the guitar up because It sounds like he enjoyed
That was
guitar.
it. So like
You
the
know.
story goes, like he picked up the guitar when he found out my mom was pregnant with me. Maybe not that exact moment, but I would think he'd have other concerns first. But he picked up the guitar knowing I had a kid, and then he was just like, I hope that I get to, teach him how to play guitar one day, or that he plays guitar one day. So
well, there you go. There you go. I know. I'm glad we could chat about it. I was curious about that, and I think it's an excellent story that kind of goes along with
too.
it.
It's a lot of fun. We're gonna do that until we can't. Just like keep on playing. It's so fun to get to share that with him.
That's the way you just word. Do it till you can't. It's just like that's how a lot of people, I think, whether we admit it or conscious of it, it's like that's how we feel about music. That's how we feel about sports. That's how we feel. It's just like do it until you can't.
Yeah, exactly. You got to take advantage of that sort of stuff while it's around. I know that obviously that's not going to last forever, but what would last forever is regret.
Yeah, you never did it. So
yeah, so just gotta get out and make a lot of memories while we can, right?
Yeah, get out there and do it.
Yeah, man.
I think this is kind of a good segue to start wrapping things up a little bit.
Cool.
What do you got in store in the future, near future?
I guess
future?
The first thing I'd immediately try and plug is that I had made this announcement last week around Backyard Busker. So I'm offering pay what you can shows, mobily powered for whoever wants it right around the GTA. I just want to get it and play live again. So I'm happy to say that I'm pretty booked up for June right now, which is great. Just getting back into live gigging. So if you're looking to have a first live music experience in a while, hit up your boy, Otherwise, I do teach guitar. You can contact me around that. And then Mobius Radio, we've got more material coming later in the year. It took, a tiny bit of a pause while we're figuring out how to get ourselves back up and live and also just getting back into playing live. So, but Mobius Radio on Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. You can check out all the weird acoustic ambiance EDM-infused duo music that we have. Is that right? Did I miss the word metal?
I think metal's in there. Yeah, no. Acoustic
right.
ambience EDM-infused metal duo.
Hell yeah, love it.
It rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, man.
As far as all the links, they'll be in the description below if you're watching the replay on YouTube. Anything else before we sign off?
You know what, man? I can't wait
to see
how you get back into playing live too, man. I know the Tense Machine was on a rip before, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys do next. So.
Oh man, last year was a weird year, but at the same time, you grow and you learn to adapt, and that's even before we started running this. Before we got chatting, it's just like watching how you adapted to last year, and just spray a bunch of stuff out there, see what's working, see what's not working, and just move on to the next one.
And that's nice to hear because, in your own mind, just because it's such a cluster F, it's you don't know actually. You're sitting there throwing a bunch of stuff, and you're like, is any of this working? So,
Yeah,
appreciate that.
That's the thing. Is anything working? Because it's you can feel like that. For years, and then something happens, and I'm always of the thought it's that's what got you there. Everything you did up until that point got you there. If you didn't make all these moves, some things you strike out, some things it just doesn't work, but it's everything got you to where. And I see people not trying stuff. It drives me insane when they say, nothing's working. What have you done? Not much. Are you surprised? So, anyway.
Come on. Do it.
Yeah, get to work. Yeah. All right, I think this is a good place to wrap things up. I would love to touch base again.
Absolutely.
Later on, especially once we get shows going again, and
cool.
Yeah, later on in the year, early next year, when we get through.
Well, if you want to have someone come play in your backyard, I know a guy, but whatever. I'll let you know about that later.
Could be a thing. I'll see if the landlords. I'll see what they're saying.
Yeah, cool. Man.
Right now, I do believe it's World Cup is pretty popular in my area.
Nice. Definitely go enjoy that.
A lot of flags, a lot of random cheering as well. Where all of a sudden you'll just hear because people are watching in their backyards, they're getting people together and watching their backyards. So
right, it's cool.
All right, sounds good. Again, I'll have all the details where everyone can find you in the description below if you're watching the replay on YouTube. Thanks again, everyone, for taking part in the chat. I think my chat froze on StreamYard here, so there's a couple things I think we missed. But we will go through that after, and we will answer those questions that may have been missed. Thanks again. Once again, my name is Mike Langford. This has been DearBands Live, and thanks again to our guest tonight, Dylan Hennessy. That is our time for tonight. Thanks for watching.